When I left the corporations as an engineer, I moved into the high desert in the United States, a place called Nuevo Mexico, about 3,000 meters above sea level is where my home is. And there are indigenous people, native people in that area in the early 1990s. And it was during this time that this part of our country was experiencing the worst drought in over 100 years. No rain during this time. And a native friend of mine called me one day and he said, "Greg, would you like to come with me to a place, a very special place, where my ancestors have gone for many, many years to pray rain?" So would you like to come with me to pray rain? Now I like the language that he used, because he said this place is special because the skin between the worlds is very thin in this place. I like that language. So I met my friend, and we went to this place, and it was a circle of stones, kind of like this. Not this exact place, but very similar to this place. Now, I was not prepared for what I saw, because I believed I would see some dancing, some chanting, some singing, some Native American stuff. And that's not what happened at all. My friend sat down and took off his old shoes. With his naked feet, he stepped into the stone circle. He honored his past. He said the words, "All of my ancestors, all of my ancestors, all of my ancestors are with me now." And then he closed his eyes and he held his hands in a prayer mudra like this. And he turned his back to me for about 20 seconds. And then he looked at me and he said, "I'm hungry. Would you like to go get food?" And I said, "Yes, but I thought you were going to pray for rain." And this is when he looked at me and he said, "No." He said, "If I pray for rain, rain could never happen." He said, because the moment you pray for something, you have just acknowledged it is not here now. If you say, "Dear God, please let there be rain. Please let there be healing in my loved ones. Please let there be peace in the world. Please let my soulmate come into my life." If you say that, what you're acknowledging is that it is not here now. You remember, the divine matrix is very literal. If you say, "Please let," the divine matrix says, "Okay, I will let and let and let," because there is no completion, there is no outcome. Does that make sense? So I asked my friend, his name was David. I asked my friend David, I said, "If you did not pray for rain just now, what did you do when you closed your eyes?" Such a beautiful story. He said, "When I closed my eyes, I felt the feeling as if the rain has already happened." He said, "I felt the feeling of what it feels like to feel my naked feet in the mud in my pueblo because there has been so much rain." He said, "I smelled the smell of what it smells like when the rain falls off of the earthen pueblo walls in our village." And he said, "I felt the feeling of what it feels like when I run through the fields of corn, and the corn is so high because there's been so much rain. He said, and then I gave thanks of gratitude and appreciation for the rain that has already happened. So he didn't ask for the rain. Now this is interesting. When those practitioners worked on the woman with the cancerous tumor, they did not judge the tumor as right, wrong, good, or bad. They accepted it as it was, and they said, now we're going to make a new reality. When my friend David prayed rain, he did not judge the drought. He said, this drought is our medicine until now, and now we will create new medicine. This is key. Feeling as if it has already happened. Well, I'll tell you the rest of the story. We had lunch that day. By the time I got back onto my property that afternoon, something began to happen that had not happened for a long time. Big black clouds were coming in from the eastern mountains, and it began to rain that afternoon. And it rained that night. It rained the next morning. It rained into the afternoon. By the evening, it had rained so much and the ground was so dry that it began to flood. The roads were flooded. The crops were flooded. The cattle were stranded. And I called my friend David on the phone and I said, this is a mess. I said, what in the world is going on? And he said, that's the part of the prayer the ancestors could never really explain. It's like they could get the rain to begin, but they didn't know how to tell it how much to rain. Now, I cannot prove to you scientifically that David's prayer made that rain happen. I cannot prove scientifically that those practitioners made the tumor disappear. But we can say there's a high correlation, a very high correlation between when they feel the feelings and when the change happens. Okay, now there's more to this story. This is very interesting. Within the last month, I was on tour in Australia with a dear friend, Dr. Bruce Lipton. I know many of you know Bruce Lipton's work. I will meet him in Vienna tomorrow. And we are presenting in Vienna, in Zurich, in Frankfurt, in Hamburg over the next week. So if you have friends who are interested, please let them know. Can we bring the light down just a poquito? Just a little bit. It's a little washed out, isn't it? It needs just... That's good. That's good. Just a little bit. Thank you. So we were in Australia last month. While we were in Australia, something happened. Look at this. While we were in Australia, Prime Minister John Howard made an announcement. He said the rivers of Australia have dried up. There is no water. It's all dust. This is a river. This is a riverbed right here. He said there is no water for crops, no water for cattle, no water for irrigation. Australia is in big, big trouble right now. This is the front page of the Australian newspaper. John Howard asked the nation to pray for rain. What happens if you pray for rain? Okay. But there's more to the story. Because Bruce Lipton and I were in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane doing these seminars. And there were people from the government in the audience. The next day, look at what happened. They declared a national rain day. But look at this. The idea was inspired by Gregg Braden's book, The Isaiah Effect, in response to Prime Minister John Howard calling on the Australians to pray for rain. Before we left Australia, something began to happen, and it started to rain, and it rained and rained and rained, and we were in Sydney, and it rained so much that the streets were flooded and people were not prepared. But the good news is that it is raining in Australia. Now, I cannot say scientifically that those prayers made that rain happen, but I can say there's a high correlation between the time the prayers happened and when the rain occurred. And this is a connection that our ancestors have told us for hundreds and thousands of years, that we can speak to the elements of the earth. We can speak to our bodies. We can speak to the world around us to create peace. In the early 1980s, Israel and Lebanon were in the first Israeli-Lebanese war, the first war. Researchers from the United States performed an experiment in the Middle East. They trained individuals to feel the feeling as if peace has already happened. This was the very famous experiment. Orme, Johnson, Alexander, Davies, Chandler, Larimore were the authors of the experiment. The experiment was called the International Peace Project in the Middle East. The results of this experiment were so profound that they were published in the Journal of Conflict Resolution, Volume 32, 1988. So the reference is here if you'd like to see this for yourself. Here's what happened. Here's what happened. They trained individuals to go into the war-torn areas and feel the feeling as if peace has already happened. They did not judge the war. They did not judge the Israelis good or bad, or the Palestinians good or bad, or the Lebanese good or bad. There's no judgment, no ego. They simply went in and felt as if the peace has already happened. Just like David felt as if the rain has already happened. Just like the practitioners felt as if the woman is already healed. You see where we're going with this. And what happened was each time the practitioners performed this experience, peace happened in the Middle East. Terrorist activities stopped altogether. Crimes against people declined. Emergency hospital room visits declined. Automobile accidents declined. And when the people stopped their feelings, all of those statistics reversed. Everything went back to where it was. And the researchers said, well, maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe it's a holiday. Maybe it's a full moon. Maybe there are more people on the streets today than yesterday. So they did the experiment again and again and again, and every time the results were the same. In fact, they were able to determine how many people it takes to feel peace for peace to happen in that area. And here's what they found. Very small number. They said if you can get the square root of 1% of your population to feel peace, peace will happen. What does that number look like? Well, let me show you the math. These are very small numbers. The square root of 1% of the population. If you have a city of 1 million people, how many people are in Milan? Do we know? Approximately? 5 million? So, okay. Yeah, well. So, muchos personas, right? Okay, if you have a city of 1 million people, here's how the formula works. You take the number of people, total number of people, multiply it by 1%, so 1 million times 0.01 gives you the number 10,000. Okay? Now you take the square root of 10,000, 100 people. In a city of 1 million people, if there are 100 people that know the language of peace, they can begin that experience of peace. What does that mean for our planet? Let's look at our planet. Earth has a population a little over 6 billion people now, close to 6.5. If we do the same thing, 1% of 6 billion people is 60 million people. If you take the square root of 60 million people, the number is just under 8,000, 7,746 people. There are 1,000 people in this room. 7 rooms like this can change the world. And that's just the beginning. What happens if many, many people come together on the internet, on the World Wide Web? They coordinate and create that peace. Well, it has happened. It's been done. Princeton University organized the studies, and while the people are feeling peace, all that happens is peace. The problem is that people stop feeling peace and then walk away from the experiment, and everything changes. So what I'd like to do is this. We're going to go into the last part of the program in just a few moments. Before we do that, we'll take our bathroom break. We come back, we're going to look at this a little bit more, and then we're going to have some experience in the room that helps us know what this feeling is all about. Okay, do you have an announcement you'd like to make? Okay, if we could do 15-minute bathroom break, I'll meet you back here 15 minutes. Thank you for a really, really wonderful session. Thank you.